Alan McDowell.
So tonight I'm going to talk about the memo that was generated by Chris Kavanaugh after I sent my complaint. So I felt well over a year ago during former Chief DeBro's reign as interim chief, and in that last week that I blew up on the screen, the problem, that there was little to no accountability at HR at the time for the city and within the police department. I used an unconventional, satirical, tactic against the department to bring firearms handling into question and the training. The department fired back and exploded in retribution with a new medical report, completely ignored my conflict of business interest with FBH. And then information started to point to a different picture of administration at the time, coming directly from officers, and the officer was the officer that should have dropped a card on my apartment at the time, but instead went to FBH after many trips to my apartment without providing a card, which is an issue. You need to provide a card if you're trying to contact someone at the door. And so I backed off for a year to HR, and so this HR document was generated. It says, on February 4th, 2017, Human Resources received an email complaint from Al McDowell, a Spokane resident. Mr. McDowell writes he is concerned about a picture posted on a personal Facebook account to a then trainee of the Spokane Police Department. Purpose of the investigation. The purpose of the investigation is to determine if Human Resources has a standing to investigate the issue brought forward by Mr. McDowell, allegations related to the investigation summary. Mr. McDowell writes that in early January 2016, he found a picture which a city employee posted on a personal Facebook page to be very offensive and threatening to the community. The picture is of a city employee who was at the time in the police academy. There is no way to tell when the picture was taken. From the setting and dress of the individuals in the picture, it is clear the employee was not on duty. Mr. McDowell writes he did express his concern to the City Council in a meeting on January 4th, 2016. The concern of Mr. McDowell expressed to Council and writes in his February 4th, 2017 email is of the stupidity of the training and hiring process at the academy. Mr. McDowell also expresses concern about professionalism and safety with firearms. And so the picture was very offensive. I don't see anyone outside the police department that uses that kind of offensive photography online with firearms, and I had questions about it. And over the past year, since the Police Leadership Advisory Committee meeting, I've heard of a lot of concerns about the training ground before this recent rape case took place, and we have a new court case coming up next month, and pre-trial comes this month, somewhere towards the middle of the month, and the cover-up of that officer-to-officer rape. And so I've been hearing, rumors coming out that come from SCC and come from a former board member of PFLAC that there has been underage drinking parties in the past, and there was a culture of this partying and possible rapes going on in the past, and people coming to professors at SCC. And then this is completely different than sexual. This is offensive use of firearms. And I feel in training, the first thing you talk about is, how to be safe with firearms and not be offensive to the public. And so I think we need to discuss what goes on that training ground still, and that we clear things up with not covering things up while this new case is arising this month and next month on the officer-to-officer rape. And so we need to talk about all the training that comes out of the academy and the officers in the future conducting appropriate behaviors. And so.
Okay, Mr. McDowell, I have a quick question. Okay. In this memo that you gave us, the the dates here are that you first
It's
pursued
outside,
this in
yeah.
2016,
Yeah.
and then you filed this in February 2017.
Yeah.
So this is,
It's outside of ombudsman.
okay,
Yeah.
but this is a year-long process
Yeah,
you've been
yeah,
going through?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very difficult because a lot of emotions involved in trying to get through to administration, what I was being told by officers at the time, in that they had problems with administration at the time, and even complaints about DeBro and not going to DeBro and going here, going there, and being told to go so many different directions. And I didn't trust HR at the time, even though officers were telling me not to go to the ombudsman, to go to HR with the issue. So I waited until Chris Kavanaugh came in, and just after she took office, I filed the complaint, because I felt more comfortable with her credentials than the previous person. But I felt at the time, I don't know if it would have been good to go through Bart. I don't know if he could have done anything about this, because it's a constitutional issue too. I had talked to Chief Meidel about it. The way an individual holds their firearms off duty is a constitutional issue. They have a constitutional right to hold their firearms and be as offensive as they want off duty, which would be a violation, I thought, of Kirkpatrick's canon rules of how you conduct yourself off duty. But there's a lot of confusion and how a person can conduct themselves off duty.
Okay, so I want to,
I don't know if anybody has any.
yeah, I want to wrap this up, but,
Yeah.
so the time for filing any sort of complaint about
1
a
year.
specific officer has passed.
Yeah.
If you have and can formulate a concern about training practices,
Yeah.
you may ask the OPO about that.
Yeah. Oh, the training practice.
Because you've mentioned training ground, you've mentioned Spokane Community College.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot of things
Yeah.
that I'm not clear how they're
We need to
related.
find the protocol for how people are trained. Maybe
Okay.
accountability paperwork for training, maybe? Is that a possible inquiry for Bart?
You know, if I may, and I can't give specifics because I don't own the case, we did look at this case.
Right.
And I'll say that the officer in the photo, it was determined that he was not employed as a SPD officer when the photo was taken.
Okay.
But it was up while he was in training.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's posting something from before being offensive while he's in training, which is offensive still,
Got it.
in my opinion.
Thank you.
So I can do an inquiry on training, though. Thank-
Well, but if this picture is something he did before training, it's not clear that your concern about posting the picture after the training started is anything that would be part of,
I meant
the
training
OPO
protocols
purview.
and conducting yourself.
yeah. Okay, thanks.